Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's topic, which is Carl Jung's theory of personality, known as the analytical psychology. So, this is still part of our POP series. No, previously we have covered Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory, and today itong analytical psychology ni Carl Jung is also still under psychodynamic approaches. No, ng theory of personality. Okay? And Jung's theory of personality is one of the most influential works in personality psychology. Very interesting din yung kanyang mga sinasabi dito, much like Sigmund Freud. So, let us get to know more about Jung and his theory. Ayan. So, sorry kasi may nagdi-drill, may gumagawa dun sa kabilang bahay. But, we'll just go ahead. And meron tayong pa-quote dito no, bago tayo mag-delve sa ating actual topic. Meron tayong quote dito. And this is from Carl Jung himself. Okay? What you're gonna do for my students who are viewing this right now, I want you to type down in the comment section below, what are your thoughts, okay, about the quote from Carl Jung. And for those of you naman na hindi ko students who are watching right now, you may want, if you want to comment, you may also do that. You may want to just type your thoughts about the quote that we have here on the screen, no, in the comment section below. Alright? So, basahin natin together. Sabi ni Carl Jung, ito, no? So, how can I be substantial if I do not cast a shadow? I must have a dark side also if I am to be whole. Yan. So, what does that quote mean to you? Put it in our comment section below. So, I will just continue with my discussion. So, for Carl Jung, the shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. Sinabi din niya that no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. And to become conscious of it um, um, involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality as present and real. I think when I discussed with you before yung overview of the psychodynamic theories, and I mentioned about Carl Jung, no, yung overview ko doon also included yung persona and the shadow archetypes, where, ang sinasabi doon ay we need to have that awareness that we are not just one aspect, that we have the good and the bad aspects of the personality, and we need to realize that we are this and that. Okay? Na hindi lang tayo isang aspeto, kung baga, ano po. So, kailangan nating tanggapin iyon para daw maging psychologically healthy individual tayo. So, sabi nga, di ba, we need to recognize the dark aspects of the personality as present and real. Ayan. Okay? So, yung act of recognition na yon is very much essential for the person, no? And it's an essential condition for any kind of self-knowledge. Yan. Okay, now, si Carl Jung, no, he was a Swiss psychoanalyst. Yung spelling ng Carl dito I C, but in some resources I would find K siya, and then yung Gustav niya, merong E. A full name kasi niya is Carl Gustav Jung. So, Jung yung basa doon. Di ko alam kung bakit may mga differences in the spellings of the names, but yeah, itong spelling na ginamit ko ay ito din yung natutunan ko sa aking psych instructor before. But it's also in the other resources that I have read. So, kung may nakita kayo na K yung Carl, tas may E yung Gustav, okay lang yun. So, it's just the same person. That's Carl Jung, okay, the Swiss psychoanalyst, na isa sa mga naging early supporters ni Freud, no? He supported Freud because they shared common interest in the unconscious. They are also very, very, very good friends, and si Freud and si Jung, they were best friends. In fact, there were other stories where the two are being linked romantically, but we're not gonna talk about that now. Maybe that's for another day. I don't know. But yeah, he was very close to Sigmund Freud. No wonder they also share some similar concepts, no, on the personality theory. So they are both psychoanalysts. Si Jung, he was very active doon sa Vienna Psychoanalytic Society before it was known as the Wednesday Psychological Society. And although he was greatly influenced by Freud initially, Jung chose a different route from Freud and he came up with his own analysis. And yung work ni Jung, it truly demonstrated the complexity of human personality. His works became very influential, and it also led to the development of the very popular Myers-Briggs personality test. Ito yung tinatanong sa akin last time ng isa sa inyo. Ma'am, pag-uusapan mo natin yung MBTI, no? Yeah, it was the work of Carl Gustav Jung that led to the development of the MBTI. But I might not be able to cover the personality categories in the inventory. So maybe in your personality assessment or psych testing, makover niyo siya. But for the discussion, we will be focusing on Jung's approach, no? May nagtanong din kasi sa akin yan about the MBTI, how accurate is MBTI. MBTI kasi gives an oversimplified view of human personality, but as we know, human beings are very complicated. Sabi nga ni Carl Jung, napaka-complex ng personality ng isang individual. And ako din personally, I don't see that we fit into these neat categories, but rather we fall along a spectrum. So for me, personally, I believe that people aren't exclusively introverts lang or extroverts or thinkers or feelers, no? But I did take MBTI before, no? And I think I took it twice or thrice. Initially, I would find myself under the INFP. Yun kasi yung mga four-letter personality types nakikita nyo ngayon very popular among the millennials ito and the youngsters like you, no? INFP ako before, no? That was the mediator. That's the mediator. And then another time I took it, I think I am an INFJ or an advocate. So I don't know, it changed for me. Actually, even the data from the Myers-Briggs test itself back this up, no? In practice, yung mga test takers, they are lumped into one category or another. But yeah, ako, I believe that it might change over time, no? Yung ating personality indicators, depending on when we took the test, like what happened for me. But yeah, if you want to try the MBTI, there are many online MBTI sites that you can take it for free. Like if you just want a rough personality type indicator for yourself, go ahead. Pwede ko na po siya i-discuss yung mga personality types ng Myers-Briggs. And we will focus on analytical psychology ni Carl Jung, no? So, his theory posits that people are extremely complex beings, sabi ko nga, who possess a variety of opposing qualities such as introversion, extroversion, masculinity and femininity, and also rational and irrational drives. And yung mga assumptions ni Jung, actually most of his assumptions of the analytical psychology reflect yung mga theoretical differences nila ni Sigmund Freud. For example, while si Jung, he agreed that yung person's past natin, no, he agreed with Sigmund Freud actually that a person's past and childhood experiences can determine yung future behavior natin. But aside from the childhood experiences and the past, ang ating future behavior is also shaped no, by our future aspirations, hindi lang nung mga past natin. Okay, so he also believed that we are shaped by our aspirations too. Yun yung parang difference nila ni Sigmund Freud when it comes to how the past affects us. So kung kay Freud, mostly on the childhood experiences lang, sa kanya, past experiences and also how we look into the future also affects us. Okay? Now, may table ako dito actually, no, to highlight the differences between Jung and Freud's assumptions, especially on the nature and purpose of libido, the nature of the unconscious, and ayun nga, na-mention ko na yung how past experiences affect yung behavior natin. For the first assumption, on the nature of libido. For example, si Jung, he disagreed with Freud regarding the role of sexuality kasi we know Freud, no? He was very heavy on the topics of sexuality and the psychic energy that's very specific to the sexual gratification of the human individual, no? And even as a young child, as an infant, meron siyang term na sexual gratification for the child. Okay? But we know naman that for Freud, it's not really sex as in intercourse. So parang sa kanya, yung sexual gratification na ito ay humuhugot, no, from that psychic energy na sinasabi ni Freud, which is the libido. No, ito yung kailangan nating isatisfy, kumbaga yung libido, according to Freud. Okay, now, ang according to Jung naman, hindi lang siya psychic energy specific to sexual gratification. Ang libido ay generalized source of psychic energy siya that motivates a range of behavior. So it's not just a sexual energy, instead it's a generalized psychic energy. For Jung, ang purpose nito ay ayun nga, i-motivate ang individual sa maraming bagay, no, in a number of important ways like spiritually, intellectually, creatively, no, yung mga creative expressions natin. So, ayun yung kay Jung. Okay? Hindi lang siya just for sexual gratification. So, motivational source siya for seeking pleasure and also reducing conflict. Okay? Now, for the second assumption, which is on the nature of the unconscious, meron silang similarities but there are also distinct concepts, no? So, mga distinct features para masabi natin talagang nagkaiba sila. Like Freud, si Jung, he emphasized on the importance of the unconscious and anong relation nito to the personality. Pero ang proposition ni Jung is that ang unconscious, no, ay consisting siya of two layers. Kasi ang kay Freud, specific lang siya to the individual, no? So yung unconscious daw natin, dito nilalagak yung mga unacceptable, repressed desires na specific to the person. Ang kay Jung, no, ganun din, storehouse din siya ng repressed memories, but not just specific to the individual, kasi kasama dito yung ating ancestral past. Okay, so kasama daw dito yung mga ancestral past natin. Okay, so discuss natin yan later, yung dalawang layers na yan, no? Yung first layer is the personal unconscious, but very much ano siya, essentially the same as Freud's version of the unconscious. Okay? In-outline din ni Jung na ang personal unconscious natin, meron siyang important feature, okay, na hindi siya na-mention ni Jung. Meron siyang na-mention, pero ibang version. Siguro madidiscuss natin yan later when we talk about complexes, no? Ano ba yung tawag ni Jung doon sa kanyang version? Mamaya, I will recall. Basta meron siyang version eh. Actually, siya yung naunang magsabi tungkol doon. It's about the Oedipus complex. Merong similarities na sinasabi doon si Jung. Later, we will discuss that too. So, a complex is a collection of thoughts, feelings, attitudes, and memories natin that are focused on a single concept. So, parang thematic siya, no? May theme siya. Okay? So, yun yung very specific on the unconscious, on the personal unconscious is the feature complex, no? Yung complex. So, yung collective unconscious naman, yung another layer of the nature of the conscious, of the unconscious of Jung, is actually by far the most important difference between Jung and Freud's notion of the collective unconscious. So sometimes yung collective unconscious ay tinatawag din siyang transpersonal unconscious. I think I'll show you the model of the psyche para mas maintindihan niyo siya. Pero maglalaktaw kasi tayo ng slides. Wait lang ha. Yeah, I think it's this one, no? So this is Jung's model of the psyche, no? Like Freud and Erikson, actually, si Jung, he regarded the psyche as made up of a number of separate but interacting systems. So if you would remember yung kay Freud, meron siyang id, ego, superego. He also touched on the conscious, preconscious, or subconscious, and also the unconscious. Okay? Yung kay Jung naman, mas madami. Meron siyang mention of the self, the ego, and the shadow, the persona, animus, anima, inner world, outer world. So I'm just reading that based on the model of the psyche that we have there. But the three main ones from this system that we are going to focus on are the ego, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. Okay? Yan yung mga features ng unconscious ni Jung. Okay? Again, ego, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. So, si Jung, he maintained that ang psyche daw natin ay parang isang katawan, like the human body. Self-regulating siya. Okay? It's a self-regulating system, and all parts of the system, they work together for the self to be able to regulate itself. Okay? The system. Now, the psyche strives to maintain a balance between opposing qualities while at the same time, it seeks its own development. Or, ang tawag doon ni Carl Jung is individuation. Ano ba yung definition ni Jung ng individuation? So, ang aim kasi nitong individuation is to parang divest the self of its false wrappings of the persona, no? And the mask the personality uses to confront the world, di ba? Yan yung persona. And gusto din niyang parang unwrap din yung suggestive power of the unconscious contents. Okay? And he equates individuation as the extension of consciousness and the development of personality. So, napakalaking factor ng contents ng ating unconscious, okay, para mabuo yung ego ng isang tao. Okay, now, according to Jung, yung ego, makikita nyo dito yung ego, just right on top of the self, okay, it represents the conscious mind, no, and it comprises yung mga thoughts natin, yung memories natin, yung emotions natin as a person, and the ego is really, no, largely responsible for the feelings of identity and continuity, no. Very important siya kay Jung, yung ego. Siguro it's important for us to think of Jung's model as a metaphor, no, not as a concrete reality. Kasi sabi ko nga, just like in Freud, hindi naman when you open up the brain, you see the ego, you see shadow, hindi siya parts, hindi siya physical, no? So, hindi siya concrete reality. They're just like metaphors, no? And hindi siya fixed, no? That it's not subject to change. Okay? Pero dinidiscuss lang natin dito how Jung is seeing the model of the psyche. And the ego, no, as how Jung sees it, is almost at the center of the field of consciousness, no, and it contains yung mga conscious awareness natin of existing, the continuing sense of the personal identity, like what I said kanina, and it is the organizer of our thoughts, intuitions, feelings natin, the sensations, and meron siyang access, no, to the memories which are not repressed. Okay, yun yung sa ego niya. The ego is the bearer of the personality actually, and it stands at the junction between the inner and outer world. So kung makikita nyo yung inner world nandyan sa baba, tapos yung outer world nandun sa taas ni ego. Ayan, so nandun siya sa junction nung dalawang yon, nung inner world and outer world. Okay? Ma'am, bakit sabi mo center si ego? No? Actually, makikita nyo dyan sa image, ang center talaga is the self. Okay? The self is greater than the ego, definitely. Okay? But the ego is arising from the self. And the ego is the bearer of the personality kasi si ego yung organizer ng mga thoughts. Okay? So the ego arises from the self. Okay? Now, the way in which people relate to the inner and outer world is determined by their attitude type. Okay? So, siguro kaya nagkaroon ng MBTI kasi para malaman ano yung mga personality types based on attitudes also. Like an extroverted individual, for example, no? Orientated to the outer world yan, and yung introverted naman primarily to the inner world. Okay? Now, Jung also noted that people differ in the conscious use they make of the four functions, which he termed as thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. Okay, so in any individual, one of these functions is superior and is therefore highly developed than the other. So, syempre, kung ano yung function that is of greater use, no, then yun yung mas nade-develop daw in the person. But each of these attitude operates in relation to the introversion or extroversion of the person, as well as in conjunction with other less dominant functions, no? So maraming maraming mga different theoretical possibilities for that. Okay? Kasi kung makikita nyo, ang daming nakaka-apekto doon sa self, no? So may persona, may shadow, and all of those things. The conscious, the unconscious, meron siyang inner world and outer world. Okay? So, ayun nga, na-mention ko na that the ego arises out of the self during the course of early development. Meron siyang executive function. So, siya yung nagpe-perceive ng meaning, nag-a-assess ng value, so that it is not only promoting yung survival ng individual, but the ego also assesses value to ensure that life is worth living. Ganyan. So, expression siya ng self, no? Hindi siya identical with it. As you can see in the model, it's right above self kasi it arises from the self, no? So, they are in no way identical, but the self is much greater than the ego, but the ego's function is executive. Kung baga, napaka-importante ng function niya. Okay? So, hanggang ego muna yung discussion natin. Balik tayo dun sa differences nila ni Freud, no? So, na-mention din natin yung collective unconscious kanina. So, the collective unconscious it's like a universal version of the personal unconscious, and it holds mga mental patterns, memory traces, which is not only specific to the individual but shared with other members of human beings, no? Of the human species. So, itong mga ancestral memories nito, Jung called them archetypes. Okay? So, si Jung kasi mahilig siya sa symbols and images. And these archetypes are represented by universal themes in various cultures. They are expressed through literature, ito yung mga symbols, no, expressed through literature, arts, and even in our dreams. By the way, itong view niya of the unconscious, this is his most original and controversial contribution to the personality theory. Okay? Sa causes of behavior patterns, causes of behavior, parehas sila ni Freud na naniniwala na ang past experience nakakaapekto, pero may dagdag syempre yung kay Jung, no? Ang in-state niya dito ay yung ating mga future aspirations ay nakakaapekto din sa ating person. So, meron nga siyang sinabi, hindi ko alam dati pala na sabi din to ni Jung, no. I don't know if it's his original quote, pero nabasa ko na sinabi niya na life really does begin at 40. Until then, you are just doing research. So imagine that long of a time until 40, no? Yung past na yon na sinasabi niya, that age from 39 hanggang nung younger years natin, although nakaka-apekto siya sa atin as an individual, kasi part yun ng experiences natin, they're just like our research. Okay, when you reach 40 and beyond, so madami pang pwedeng mangyari sa buhay mo, no? So yung mga future aspirations mo, it doesn't have to begin at age 40, ha. I think this is also just a metaphor. What he's trying to say here is, yung mga past experiences natin, these are, this may affect our current situations, our current states, but we can still hope for the future. We still have aspirations to our future, and these still shape our personality, how we think, how we act. Yung sinabi niya, basahin ko dito, life really does begin at 40. Up until then, you are just doing research, no? So sinabi yan ni Carl Jung. So my life just began, diba? Kasi I was 40 last December. And yan, marami pa akong ma-experience after this age. Sabi ni Carl Jung yan. Ayan. Now, Jung saw the human psyche as divided also into conscious and unconscious level. Tapos yung unconscious level, divided pa nga siya sa personal and collective unconscious. So, focus tayo on the discussion of the two. Okay? Now, in analytical psychology, the personal unconscious is Carl Jung's term for the Freudian unconscious. So, nasabi ko kanina that they are very similar, di ba? So, ang kaibahan lang is the collective unconscious, which we will be discussing later on. So, ang Freudian unconscious as contrasted with Jungian concept of the collective unconscious, yung personal unconscious is oftentimes referred to by Jung as no man's land. Okay? And the personal unconscious is located daw at the fringe of consciousness. So, sa madaling sabi, napaka-similar lang talaga ng theory of personal unconscious to Freud's creation of a region containing yung mga persons repressed, forgotten, or ignored experiences, which is the unconscious. Okay? So, the personal unconscious also contains forgotten information, repressed memories, and dito din, ang isa sa content ng ating personal unconscious ay yung tinatawag na complexes, which I mentioned earlier, no? Para siyang collection of thoughts, feelings, attitudes, and memories focusing on a single concept. Okay? So, ayun, we have a variety of memories and emotions na minsan nire-repress natin, nire-reject natin. Hindi siya ganon kadaling i-recall consciously. Lalo na yung mga bitter memories, yung mga events that might have caused us to feel hatred, yung mga embarrassing moments natin, painful experiences, and also yung mga forbidden urges natin can all be repressed in the personal unconscious of the individual. And even though it's in our personal unconscious, Jung believed that this could still have a great impact on the individual. Okay? And it might resurface, no? Pagdating ng panahon, parang ganyan. So for example, no, imagine nyo a person who went through a traumatic experience in his or her childhood. No, after the passing of many years, the person may have completely recovered, no, from this traumatic experiences. Yung kanyang emotional torments, no, experience niya, unpleasant and painful memories niya may have been shaded already. Okay, this is because the individual has repressed these emotions and memories. Like when I talked about Sigmund Freud, di ba meron siyang ang parang motivated forgetting, pinush back from the subconscious to the unconscious yung mga memories na ayaw niya. So parang ganon din to, no? And same thing, like what Freud said, no, that even though we have repressed these memories, hindi siya nawawala. They are not lost, no. On the contrary, these emotions are still very much present. They are just stored in the personal unconscious. And even though the person is unable to recall them kasi nga sobrang pushed back siya into that unconscious, that personal unconscious part, pwede siyang mag-manifest in the forms of dreams and also unusual reactions to daily events. So remember, the slip of the tongue, kay Freud yun, and yung ano pa ba yung Freudian slips niya, so that's a similar concept, no? So kay Jung, ang emphasis niya is more on manifesting through forms of dreams, ganyan, and usual reactions to daily events. Okay? Now, this emphasizes that the personal unconscious, no, is unique to the individual kasi iba-iba tayo ng experiences. Kaya iba-iba din yung mga reactions natin, no, to the experiences in our lives. Ayan. Okay, now, if you're going to look at the model again, shino ko siya sa inyo kanina. The personal unconscious, I'm also looking at it. And the personal unconscious is a product between a product of the interaction between the collective unconscious. Ayan, makikita nyo yung unconscious, di ba? Pointing to the self and then yung personal. So makikita nyo na ano siya, parang byproduct siya ng interaction between the collective unconscious and the development of the individual during life. So Jung's definition of the personal unconscious, di ba, nasabi ko na sa inyo kanina, ito nga yung mga memories na nirepress din. Basahin ko sa inyo dito, may notes kasi ako dito. This is his own word, no, according to Jung. No? Sinabi niya, naka-quote, unquote siya dito. Wait lang. Ayan, sabi niya, everything of which I know, but of which I am not at the moment thinking, everything of which I was once conscious, but have now forgotten, everything perceived by my senses, but not noted by my conscious mind, everything which involuntarily and without paying attention to it, I feel, think, remember, want, and do, all the future things which are taking shape in me. So you see, merong importance talaga yung future things dito, hindi lang siya yung mga past experiences. So sabi niya, all the future things which are taking shape in me and will sometime come to consciousness, all these is the content. So all these are the contents of the unconscious. Yan. Ito pa. I think important din to. Sinabi niya, besides this, we must include all more or less intentional repressions of painful thought and feelings. I call the sum of these contents the personal unconscious. So it is really all about the person's experiences, yung mga personal experiences niya, and including yung kanyang mga future aspirations. So all of these are the personal unconscious. Okay, now, the outer world, you can see in the model there. So meron tayong outer world and inner world. Okay, so the outer world is the external world of objects and other people too. Includes our public life, yung relationships natin to the people around us, to the situations that can lead to our own personal advancement. Yan yun siya. Tapos makikita nyo dyan, right below the outer world, no? In between the ego and the outer world is the persona. So ano ba yung persona? No, this is our protective mechanism. Ito yung outer mask we display as our public image or yung face that we are willing to show other people. We are willing and able to show other people, the world, no? Ito po yung outer face that protects the many layers. Diba? Maraming layers. Tingnan mo yung model of Psyche ni you. Para tayong onion. Diba? Sobrang daming layers beneath us, which, can be peeled away like an onion. And as we keep on peeling and peeling, we move deeper and deeper into our more hidden aspects of the self and into our shadow side. Okay, nasa baba na yung shadow, ganun nakalalim. Pag napakita yung shadow, ibig sabihin, ayun yung isa sa mga pinaka malalim na aspects mo, yung shadow mo. No, yan yung shadow side na tinatawag. Okay? Now, our consciousness is aware through our senses and how we process the information continuously exchange with our outer world. We comprehend the world through yung mga personal unconscious natin as responses natin, preferences natin, inclinations, opinions, viewpoints, all of those things, no? Yun yung natin. Yun yung mga pinapakita natin. Okay? Sa ating paligid, no? Yung public image natin. Okay? But we do have a persona that we wear to also protect our egos. Okay, now, itong mga personal unconscious natin provides us with the capacity for empathy, no? In its connection through the self with the inner world and the conscious and the collective unconscious. It is the place where mga forgotten things nagsisurface from the subconscious and appear in the conscious. So according to Jung, yung self is at the center of the psyche. So like what I've mentioned to you, greater siya than the ego, diba? Pero expression kasi ni self yung ego. But definitely, the self is at the center of the psyche. Okay? Yung ego is is arising from the self and center to the consciousness. Nakikita mo dyan, yung parang may dalawang ganon, no? On the consciousness, on what we bring to the awareness. Okay? So yung psyche natin also represents an archetypal processing center of a person's entire personality and it is the connection between the conscious and the unconscious. So makikita mo doon sa taas yung conscious, sa baba yung unconscious. So napapalibot siya sa self kasi the self is what connects the conscious and the unconscious selves. Okay? And also the objective with the subjective selves. Okay? So self din yung in between those, and para siyang zone where the personal self blends into the unconscious self and then becoming the personal unconscious. Okay, it's the ego that arises from the self, saying I am, di ba? Siya yung nakikinig kay ego. Okay, si self. Although si ego nag-arise kay self, si self siya yung nakikinig kay ego when the ego says I am. Like, I am hungry, I am angry, I am happy, I am sad. So, ego is the one saying that in the consciousness level. Kasi siya yung nakaka-feel, siya yung nag-a-analyze based on the stimuli around the individual. Okay, so the self is the one who listens to the ego when the ego says that. When the connections are clear and the channels are open within ourselves, then we can have that enlightened moments of, okay, gutom pala ako, galit pala ako. Yan. Okay? So, it is also during those parang aha moments where ideas and concepts flow, no, that are, impossible to consciously evoke with, the same illuminations when these avenues are blocked. Okay? So, minsan, yung mga avenues natin are blocked because we do not want to really show everything to the public. Okay? So, if you can see, ego arising from the self listens to the ego, but we have persona above the ego. So, if there are things that we don't want to show, then we have that mask to protect the ego. Okay? Ayon. Now, existing in the realm of the collective unconscious, you will be able to find yung inyong mga ating, no? Our most primal and instinctive urges and drives. So here, we will be able to find shadow. So nasa ilalim na siya ni self, 'di ba? Under the collective unconscious. Okay, and here we find Animus and Anima too. Mas i-discuss natin siya later on, no, when we talk about the archetypes. And ito yung mga forces na to, it is from deep within ourselves. And sometimes they might rise. No? Di natin alam ano yung makaka-trigger ng mga ito. It depends on the individual's experiences. But sometimes, surface siya, but not always, kasi nga the persona is protecting the ego and the self. Okay? So minsan hindi siya nakikita, pero meron pala tayong ganoong mga aspects, no? Yung shadow aspect, shadow self natin, the animus and the anima. Okay, now, para mas maintindihan nyo, i-share ko to sa inyo. If you have questions later on, pwede natin siyang pag-usapan. Pero I have read that there are new discoveries in science, no, relating to genetics and epigenetics, showing how the experiences of our ancestors are passed down through our genes. Well, it's hard to imagine, no, how they will be passed on through our genes. But yeah, these discoveries would say that sometimes from our deep within our essence, we feel a sense of, some kind of, you feel out of touch of reasons, no, for your actions and impulses, and you can't just put a finger on it, no. So minsan meron daw tayong nafe-feel na strong connection to our roots, to our ancestors, to our tribes, and this place is just beyond conscious reach, and sinasabi na ito yung mga ancestral influences na meron tayo. Okay? And nasa collective unconscious din natin siya. Okay? I don't know if you have also encountered in your gen psychology, hindi kasi ako yung teacher ninyo dito about psychogenetic endowment. Sorry, not psychogenetic. Phylogenetic endowment. Pero kay Sigmund Freud to, no? So, it consists of inherited experiences that lie beyond an individual's personal experiences. Nandyan yan sa book natin, sa Feist and Feist, dun sa shinare ko sa inyo. No? So, parang ganun siya. Parang ganun yung collective unconscious. No? So, sometimes we feel a strong connection to our roots from our ancestors, no? Ayan. And this is beyond conscious reach and is part of the collective unconscious. Ayan. Now, as we pass through the self, we move into our deeper and darker nature, no? Pag nakita mo dyan, just below the self is the shadow. In this journey, no, of passing through yourself, you meet the shadow, no? Now, yung ego kasi natin is the polarity of our shadow. No? Our ego is the image we project through our persona, and the shadow naman is what we wish to conceal. Okay? So, polar sila, si persona tsaka si shadow. Shadow is what you project, your public image, and shadow is what you want to conceal. So ito, ano na to we are already entering the realm of the inner self, no? Actually, parang may nabasa ko noon sinasabi that our shadow is easiest to see in the things that we least like in others, di ba? So ano ba yung mga hindi natin gusto sa kapwa natin? Then it's also a reflection of our shadows. And the shadow side of ourselves, it resides in the collective unconscious side of the hand and in the inner world beyond the personal unconscious. And when you talk about polarity, so pag polar, di ba, two sides, no, two poles, it exists here such as daydreams and nightmares, pwedeng insight and confusion, imagination and hallucination, illusion and reality. Yan. Okay, now pag-usapan natin yung complexes, na-mention ko siya kanina na um, isa siyang part ng personal unconscious feature. No? Actually, special feature siya ni personal unconscious. Okay? Complexes, they comprise core patterns of desires, emotions, memories and perceptions, attitudes also, no? That are unknowingly nakaka-influence on the way a person thinks and syempre paano tayo mag-behave. Itong mga complexes na ito ay generally organized around a common theme. Examples ng mga themes ay status or power and many others, no? So focus tayo sa complexes, pag-usapan natin 'yan kasi yan daw yung personal special feature ng personal unconscious, no? Contents ng personal unconscious. But before I move on, I move doon sa complexes kasi ang haba nung sharing ko, isa-summarize ko lang siya, okay? Yung pinag-usapan natin, okay? So the unconscious, pinag-usapan natin si unconscious, di ba? Ito yung psychic images not sensed by the ego. And some of the unconscious processes, they flow from our personal experiences and others stem from our ancestors' experiences with universal themes. Ito yung sinasabi nating collective unconscious or the ideas that are beyond our personal experiences. Meron pa tayong discussion about the collective unconscious later. Okay, when we talk about the archetypes. Okay? So, actually, yun yung pinaka-summary lang nun. Yung subdivision ng unconscious natin, which is the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious. We have also discussed yung difference nila, di ba? Doon sa ating table. Let's go back to the table. Ayan. Okay, yung nature ng libido. While one is specific to sexual gratification, according to Freud, Jung's, okay, it is a generalized psychic energy, okay, that motivates the behavior. And sa past experiences naman, very particular sa childhood experiences si Freud affecting yung current states ng individuals, while yung past experiences and addition doon yung future aspirations natin as individuals. Okay, now let's talk about complexes as the special feature of the personal unconscious. Okay, so in definition, the American Psychological Association defines complexes as a group or system of related ideas and impulses that have a common emotional tone and exert a strong but usually unconscious influence on the individual's attitudes and behavior. So itong mga nandito, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yung examples ko dito ng common complexes are still generally seen in today's society among individuals. So, i-discuss ko siya. There are many other complexes, no? Of course, nadadagdagan yan. Pero ito yung mga very common complexes. So, we have parental complex, and this is very similar to the Oedipus Electra complex of Sigmund Freud. And we have persecution complex, inferiority, superiority, the madonna-whore complex, God complex, guilt, and the martyr complexes. So, we will roughly talk about these things today. Medyo mahaba pa yung discussion natin today, so please bear with me. And I want you to take down notes as I discuss, okay, para sa mga future discussions natin, baka mag-arise ulit yung conversations about this, then you can share. No? You can share about the topic. Now, yung complex of Oedipus or Electra or the parental complex, nag-arise ito doon sa Greek mythology. No? In Greek mythology, in which si Oedipus, he killed his father and married his mother. Ito yung explanation ni Sigmund Freud dati, no, about the erotic feelings of the son towards the mother, along with hostility and rivalry towards the father during the phallic stage of development. No? So it begins when the child is around 3 years old, ganyan, and the corresponding relationship when a daughter has erotic feelings towards the father and hostility towards the mother is called the Oedipus complex. Electra complex, or the complex of Electra. Okay, so ano bang explanation, ma'am, niyang parental complex sa sa modern times, kasi sabi mo it's still happening, no, in the society today, no? So tayo kasi meron tayong awareness of how mothers and fathers live inside us, yung mga images natin of the mother and father. Napaka-vital nun in being conscious of how they influence our current relationship. So yung image natin of the father and mother, being cognizant of our parental complexes actually allows us to take back what we unconsciously project into an intimate partner maybe, or sa friends natin, kahit sa mga katrabaho natin, 'di ba? Sa boss natin, ganyan. So parang yung parental complex kasi is para siyang cluster of emotionally charged images, ideas, thoughts, and feelings and behavior patterns originally associated with the parents. No? Now, do not confuse the mother complex with our real flesh and blood mother. So, hindi lang siya yung kung sino yung nanay natin. Ganon yung idea natin about the mother complex. For the conflicts tayo. So, mother complex, no? It rather refers to our way in which yung paano yung psyche natin has integrated the personal mother, no, within the structure of the archetypal mother. Okay? So, pag sinabi nating archetypal mother, ano ba yung tingin natin sa mga mothers also and fathers, 'di ba? As passed down to us by our ancestors. So, kumbaga parang stereotypical na tingin natin sa mga mothers, ganyan, no? So, yung activation of a complex is always marked by the presence of an intense emotion. Like, when your buttons are pushed, we all have that mother complex, father complex, no? Pero they differ from person to person kasi yung internalized image of the parents natin comprises also of our individual experience of the personal parents as well as the culture and the situations we are currently in. So sabi ko, although hindi natin siya i-confuse with our personal parents, may epekto pa rin sa atin kung paano natin nakikita yung mga parents natin, but definitely it's an integration of what the culture says about a father and a mother image, no? So, ayun nga, at the core of it, no, of the parental complex is the archetypal image of the primordial parents residing in each and every person's mind or psyche. No? For instance, ang ang isa sa archetype natin for the mother, no? Behind that emotional associations natin with our own mother is that there is an archetypal mother, an ano ba, an age-old collective image of a mother spanning, no, humanity's experience of mothering, which is nourishing ang isang mother, and we feel secured, no, with this mother. And this archetype of the mother is the positive mother archetype. Okay? Now, there is another archetype image of a mother na devouring naman tong mother na ito, possessive naman kasi may mga ganong mothers, no? And this archetype talks about the negative mother. Okay? Similarly, behind that is the father complex. So there is a father archetype na ang tingin natin sa mga fathers ay they are all experienced and they are top figures, no? So yung fathering kasi ang tingin natin through the ages is that a father is authoritarian. There might be permissive fathers also, and all shades in between. So ito yung images of the father that we have. Okay, now because of these images of the archetypal parents, yung mga reactions natin are related to how we are seeing the father and the mother. Okay, so a negative father or mother complex, for instance, no, may have been formed due to a father or a mother who is not physically or emotionally absent. Okay? Although meron tayong general view sa archetype of a mother na nurturing siya and you feel secured when you are with your mother, pero yung sa personal experiences mo din ay hindi physically present yung mother mo or emotionally absent siya, then nagkakaroon din tayo ng formation of a negative parental complex. Okay? Ganon yung parental complex. So, yung negative parental complex can manifest in self-doubt, pwedeng in idealization of others, may also include profound self-hatred, manifestations of dissociations, ganyan. So sometimes tayo as individuals, ayun nga, pag natitrigger yung mga emotions natin, halimbawa, when we talk about relationships, pag merong ginawang hindi maganda yung partner mo, lumalabas yung mother complex mo na, alam mo, mali ang ginawa mo. So, nagsesermon ka, di ba? May mga ganyan na mothers na. Mali ang ginawa mo, hindi yan tama. Tapos minsan naglilista ka pa ng mga, ito yung mga bagay na dapat mong gawin. Tapos sabihan ka ng partner mo na, para kang nanay ko. Ganyan. Kasi lumalabas yung mother complex mo. Okay? So, ayun siya. So much about parental complex. Very interesting. So I want you to read more about that if you have the time. But we will talk about the other complexes. The second one is the persecution complex. This is one of the most common complexes in the modern times, no, in today's world. Marami pa ring mga ganyan, no? Yung persecution complex makes the person believe na everyone is trying to harm them, is not going to do anything good towards them, no? And this belief of being harmed is actually irrational and exaggerated and makes the person look at everyone with extreme suspicion, no? Pero bakit ba tayo nagkakaroon ng mga persecution complex? Of course, it also depends on the environment that we are in. Actually, ngayon, we're like, part of the air that we breathe is stress and anxiety, no? Ano bang nangyayari sa mundo? Ano bang nangyayari sa bansa? May mga ganun tayong beliefs and feeling natin na baka ma-harm tayo ng situations natin ngayon sa ating bansa. This is not political, ha? I mean, di ba may mga nangyayari sa mga bansa. Tapos isipin mo, ano kayang mangyayari sa bagong presidente, yung dating presidente, yung mga ganon, no? So, iba-iba tayo ng mga paniniwala tungkol dyan, pero pare-parehas tayo ng sitwasyon dito sa sa bansa natin, pero iba-iba yung reactions natin, sometimes exaggerated. So, hindi mo makita na magiging maayos, mga ganyan. So, meron kang mga ganong complexes. Okay? So, it really depends also on your experiences. No? Anong mga nangyayari sa paligid mo. Sometimes you become so extremely suspicious of the world around you, what's gonna happen with you because of situations you are in. Okay, so iba-iba din tayo ng triggers. Okay, now let's proceed to inferiority complex. No, another common complex. It makes the person believe that they are unworthy or less capable than others. They may sometimes overcompensate, no, because of this complex, and they try to achieve great things. Yet, they never believe that they have achieved enough success, and their inferiority complex may make them resentful and dissatisfied, making them avoid social interactions. I know a lot of people na merong mga inferiority complex, and sometimes it's not easy for them to just, go out there kahit sabihin mo na, uy, okay ka naman, mga ganyan. Pero because it's deeply rooted yung mga inferiority nila na yon, kaya mahirap na basta lang silang maging confident, but they do try. But sometimes even when they try, no, hindi nila makita na, or hindi sila naniniwala that they have already achieved enough success. Ayun. So kabaliktaran naman ni inferiority complex is superiority complex, no? So yung person naman with a superiority complex, ang paniniwala niya ay exceptionally better siya than other people, and meron siyang exaggerated sense of self-esteem. And naniniwala siya na kahit anong gawin niya, sabihin niya, yung mga paniniwala niya ay laging siya yung tama. Ayan, yun naman yung mga taong may superiority complex. They feel that they have all the virtues and look down on others as inferior to them. Ayan. So sometimes tong mga taong may superiority complex, mahirap silang ma-please, feeling nila sila lagi yung tama, no? And minsan di sila tumatanggap ng explanations kung ano lang yung pinaniniwalaan nila. So, yun yung tama. Ito yung mga taong may superiority complex. Okay? Now, we have the madonna-whore complex. Typically seen in men who are not able to maintain a committed sexual relationship with their partner. Oh my, I know so many people. Sure. So, ito yung mga taong to, they might suffer from the madonna-whore dichotomy. Okay? Pag sinabi nating dichotomy, polarized yung perceptions nila, no, of women in general. So, people with this complex, they either consider their partner as a pure or good and chaste Madonna, or the extreme opposite, no? A bad, promiscuous, and seductive whore. Okay, so the moment they begin to admire a woman sexually, they think of her in a disgusting way. Okay, actually, very similar ito doon sa psychic impotence ni Sigmund Freud. No? So this was first identified by Sigmund Freud under the rubric of psychic impotence, where Freud, sinabi niya na where such men love, they have no desire. And where they desire, they cannot love. Yun yung sinabi ni Sigmund Freud about psychic impotence. Kay Jung naman, it's under complex, no? The madonna-whore complex. Well, this is not like the regular, paano ko ba siya sasabihin? Because, men and even women, we will look at the opposite sex when we admire them. Sometimes we can't help to admire yung mga physical, diba? Sobrang ganda sobrang pogi for us, ang sexy, so buff, mga ganyan. Okay lang yon, no? As humans, nakikita natin yun, express din natin yun We even tell people, oh, you look so fit. And that's fine. Yung sinasabi natin dito na complex, yung madonna-whore na complex is, thinking of women in a disgusting way. And because this is how that person with this kind of complex views women, hindi siya nagiging capable to have that commitment to a loving, respectful relationship, no, or committed, loving relationship. Okay? So yung sexual arousal niya ay talagang ayun lang, hanggang dun lang. Hindi siya within a committed, loving relationship. So that's the madonna-whore complex, no? Ayan. So let's talk about the God complex. People with the God complex, they think that, they have some kind of divine godlike powers and, they are above all mankind. So, iba naman to sa superiority complex where the person always feels na siya yung tama, siya yung magaling, at overconfident siya masyado. Ito naman, as in, exaggerated itong complex na ito na feeling nila omnipotent sila na ganyan, that they have godlike powers, that above all the mankind sila. So, they are, capable enough to take extreme risk, no, and shun the rules of society. Okay? So, I don't know if we can say na para din siyang superiority complex. Actually, pero parang extreme kasi siya na feeling niya hindi siya, yung rules of society hindi nag-a-apply sa kanya. 'Di ba? Kung baga, alam natin na yung mga may superiority complex, overly confident lang yan, puro yabang-yabang lang yan. Pero itong si God complex, ano ba example nito? Alam mo na masama ang mag-murder. You know that. 'Di ba? We all know that kasi sa law natin, ganyan. Pero wala kang pakialam, no? Because you are powerful and you think you can do it. You do it. You gun people. You shoot people in broad daylight. Yan, yung mga God complex, yung mga yan. Siguro. I don't know. I don't want to judge. But yeah. Okay? Because you're not supposed to do that. And how can you shun those rules of the society if you do not think that you are above the law and above everyone? So, yeah. Just one example. Okay? Now, guilt complex. Now, this makes the person blame themselves naman for everything that goes wrong. They are excessively self-critical and they think that they are accountable for every bad happening. They are overly sensitive, no, sa mga opinions ng ibang tao, and they also put all their efforts into trying to make things better. Okay? Kasi feeling nila, no, na sila lagi yung may mga kasalanan. People who have guilt complex, sometimes they hide their faces under that persona of people pleaser type. No? So they please people because they feel guilty that if they don't please, they they cannot make things better for other people, or self-critical kasi sila excessively, and if something bad happens, they feel that they are accountable for it, so they might just want to always do what is good in the eyes of others para they wouldn't feel guilty about it. Okay? And we also have the martyr complex. Yeah. A person with a martyr complex strives to get attention and sympathy through suffering, and they put everyone above themselves to the extent that they ignore their own needs. Alam mo, may mga taong ganyan, no? Sometimes, feeling natin sobrang bait nila, laging inuuna yung desires ng iba, yung needs ng iba, that they tend to forget their own desires. So, dati may nagsabi sa akin ng ganyan, napaka-martyr mo. Ayan. So, pagka merong ganong ikaw complex, talagang minsan, hindi mo siya ma-avoid kahit alam mo that there are boundaries that you have to set for yourself, you still continue to put everyone above yourself. No? Pero feeling ko hindi naman, wala naman akong ganitong complex. And hindi ko naman ginagamit yung situation ko to get the attention and the sympathy of others. Kasi, yung mga martyr complex, meron sila ding mga parang victim mentality, and they also use their situation, yung mga sufferings nila, to get attention and sympathy from others. Ayan. Okay? Wait lang. Na-discuss ba natin lahat? Yes. Okay, yes, na-discuss natin siya lahat. Okay, so there might be other complexes na ma-encounter kayo. No, you can share about those when we get the chance to discuss again through our online face-to-face meetup. Online face-to-face. Our online sessions, no, when we meet next time. Okay? So those are about the complexes. Now, that's part of the personal unconscious. This time, we're talking about the other layer of the unconscious, according to Jung, which is the collective unconscious. Now, collective unconscious, ito po yung mga images, not inherited ideas, but rather they refer to innate tendency to react in a particular way whenever our personal experiences stimulate an inherited predisposition toward action. Yan. So, yung contents of collective unconscious are called archetypes. Kung merong complexes si personal unconscious, dito naman kay collective unconscious, pag-uusapan natin yung contents niya, which are the archetypes. Ayan. Ano ba, ma'am, yung mga archetypes na yan? Okay? Archetypes, no? According to Jung, ito po ay nag-originate through the repeated experiences of our ancestors, and that they are expressed in certain types of dreams, fantasies, hallucinations, and delusions. No? And several archetypes acquire their own personality, and Jung identified these by name. So pag-uusapan natin yung mga iba't ibang archetypes later on. Archetypes are universal, okay? And they are inborn models of people, behaviors, and personalities that play a role in influencing human behavior. So pag sinabi mong universal, kahit saang mundo, ay saang lugar dito sa mundo, na ma-manifest yung mga ganitong archetypes, no? So bawat individual. So it doesn't matter kung anong culture mo, there will be certain archetypes na na-express mo. Pwedeng iba-iba yung expressions kasi iba-iba nga tayo ng kultura, pero lahat tayo possibly merong persona, shadow, anima, animus, and of course ourselves. Okay, so si Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, nagsuggest siya na itong mga archetypes na to were archaic forms of innate human knowledge passed down from our ancestor. Okay, and in Jungian psychology, these archetypes represent universal patterns. Okay, so sabi ko nga, nakikita to sa kahit sinong tao sa buong mundo. And part ito ng ating collective unconscious as individuals. He believed na na-inherit natin tong mga archetypes na to much in the way that we inherit instinctive patterns of behavior. Okay? Now, si Jung, he claimed to identify a large number of archetypes. So maraming iba't ibang kinds of archetypes. Pero he paid special attention to these four. Okay, so we have the self, the persona, the shadow, the anima, and the animus, which I have roughly discussed with you kanina in the model that I have showed you. No? So the persona is the side of our personality that we show to others. Okay, the shadow is the dark side of personality. To reach full psychological maturity, according to Jung, kailangan ma-realize or ma-accept natin yung ating shadow self. Okay? Now, we also have the Anima and the Animus. So, Anima, yan yung feminine side. And yung Animus naman, yan yung masculine disposition. Now, Jung also believes that a second hurdle in achieving maturity is for men to accept their anima or their feminine side, and also for women to accept their animus or their masculine disposition. Okay? Um, discuss natin later isa-isa yan. Okay, now yung most comprehensive archetype is the self, no? That is, no, the image that we have of fulfillment, completion, or perfection. Yun yung image na gusto nating makita of ourselves, that we are complete, we are perfect, and we are fulfilled. Now, the ultimate psychological maturity is self-realization, which is symbolized by the mandala. So, may mandala ako dyan na picture, no? It's a perfect geometric figure. Okay? Yang mandala. So, yan yung symbolism of an ultimate psychological maturity, which is self-realization. Yan. So now let's talk about the self. No? So the self is an archetype that represents the unified unconsciousness and consciousness of an individual. So si Jung, he often represented the self as either circle, pwede ding square, or mandala. No? Creating the self occurs through a process known as individuation, which I have discussed with you earlier. And in which the various aspects of personality are integrated. Kanina, you looked at the model. There are so many aspects. If you are able to integrate all of those aspects together, then you create the self through the process known as individuation. So, si Jung, he believed that this harmony between the unconscious and the unconscious mind could lead to psychological problems. Okay? So bringing these conflicts into awareness and accommodating them in conscious awareness was an important part of the individuation process, according to Carl Jung. Ayan. Now let's talk about the archetype persona. So the persona is how we present ourselves to the world. The word persona is derived from the Latin word, literally means mask. I've mentioned that to you when we had the overview, no, of what personality means. Derived din siya sa word na persona, which means mask, no? It is not actually a literal mask, no? However, it represents all of the different social masks that we wear among various groups. Sorry, I burped. And situation. So it acts to shield the ego from negative images. And according to Freud, itong persona na to may even appear in our dreams and take different forms. And over the course of development, children learn that they must behave in certain ways in order to fit in with society's expectations and norms, and therefore, even as a young child, children wear this persona. Now, I'm very keen about discussions of persona among children. Pero siguro that would be for a different discussion. Kasi ako naniniwala ako that children should not be wearing masks, no, just to try to fit in with society's expectations and norms. But because they are in the society, and we follow certain systems, even children do wear their mask. Okay, now maybe that's for a different day. So let's just continue talking about the persona, no? And the persona develops as a social mask to contain lahat ng mga primitive urges natin, impulses natin, emotions that we consider socially unacceptable. Okay? Ayun. Persona archetype also allows people to adapt to the world around them, and ayun nga, i-fit nila yung lives nila, no, sa kanilang society in which they live in. So Um, I believe that becoming too closely identified with this archetype can lead people to lose sight of their true selves. Okay? So remember kasi yung persona natin, we try so much to protect our ego, no? And we follow what the society says, and therefore we fit into that box that the society has set for us. And sometimes, we just lose sight of what we really want, what we ought to do. But yeah, so sometimes because we are in the system, then we follow that's persona. Okay? Now, next is the shadow. Ayan. This is the animal side of our personality. No? Like like the id and Freud, no, it is the source of both our creative and also destructive energies. Ang scary nung creative and destructive, no, pero very interesting, no. Siguro in line with the evolutionary theory, it may be that Jung's archetypes reflects yung mga predisposition that um, once had survival value. No? And the shadow is an archetype that also consists of the sex and life instincts. So the shadow exists as part of the unconscious, and is composed of repressed ideas, weaknesses, desires, instincts, and shortcomings. Now, the shadow forms out of our attempts to adapt to the cultural norms and expectations also. So, parang si persona din. So, di ba polarities nga siya? Okay, while persona is what we show, shadow naman is what we conceal also because of the cultural norms and expectations. Kaya meron tayong mga kino-conceal na parts of us because the society might find it unacceptable even if um, desires natin yun talaga, hindi natin siya na manifest, no? Yung shadow, di ba, nandun siya sa ilalim na part nung ating model, no? So, hindi siya laging nagsisurface. Pero, yung shadow na yan talaga yung nilalaman ng parang sa id mo, di ba? Ng mga gusto mo, ng mga desires mo. These are your instincts, no? But because of cultural norms and expectations, ayan, so we attempt to hide ang mga contents ng shadow na yan. So, it is this archetype that contains all of the things na hindi acceptable para sa society. But also, no, siguro doon din sa mga personal and moral values ng individuals. Kasi minsan, kahit meron tayong, di ba, we have our own personal compass. And we know if these are of loose morals, if these values aren't good. Pero even though we know that these aren't good, sometimes we want them. Sometimes we do them in secrecy, in the privacy of our homes, in our rooms. Diba? Kahit alam natin na hindi siya tama. Or baka masarap siya sa pakiramdam kahit na hindi siya dapat gawin, hindi siya acceptable ng society. Diba? So, may mga ganon. Okay? It might also include things such as yung greed, yung envy, yung mga prejudices natin, feelings of aggression, sexual desires, no, hate, feelings of hate, all of those things are in the shadow. Represented siya by the shadow archetypes. Now, si Jung, he suggested that the shadow can appear in dreams kasi hindi mo siya na-verbalize, hindi mo siya nagagawa. So, it may take a variety of forms, pwedeng through dreams and visions. Napapanaginipan mo siya kasi kasi naiisip mo siya pero hindi mo siya na-execute, mga ganyan, no? It might appear as kasi si Freud and si Jung, they are both very heavy on the discussion of dreams and dream analysis too. So Jung suggested that these kinds of images, no, relating to the shadow archetype, so it can appear in your dreams and it might appear in the form of a snake, a monster, no, a demon, a dragon, or some other dark, wild, or exotic figure. Okay? Now, itong archetype din na ito is often described as the darker side of the psyche. And it represents wildness, chaos, and the unknown. Diba? Now, these latent dispositions are present in all of us. Okay? So, hindi ka pwedeng mag-deny, no, wala akong ganyang thoughts. Wala akong mga wild thoughts, ganyan. Meron yan. So, hindi lang natin siya nilalabas sa surface palagi kasi hindi nga siya accepted ni society. Okay? So, people may sometimes deny this element of their own psyche, but it doesn't mean that if you deny it, it's not there. Okay? So, yeah. You hide it, it might be projected onto others through a variety of forms. So be careful of your shadows. Ayan. Now, let's talk about the anima and the animus. Okay, now, animus is the unconscious masculine side of a woman. Tama ba? Animus is the unconscious masculine side of a woman. And the anima is the unconscious feminine side of a man. Okay? And each of these two transcends the personal psyche. Now, in Jung's theory, the anima makes up the totality of the unconscious feminine psychological qualities that a man possesses, and the animus, the masculine ones possessed by a woman. Ayon. So, si Jung, he also believed that a male's sensitivity is often lesser and repressed siya, no? And therefore considered the anima as one of the most significant and autonomous complexes. Okay? Kasi, ano siya lesser and more repressed siya because I think the males do not want to really show that side of them, no, their sensitive side. Not everyone, but most men, they are wired to be like that. I don't want to sound sexist, okay, but it's observed, it's in the literatures, and but we know that there are many males who are sensitive, and actually yung mga sensitive men very na din sila, open na din sila ngayon of showing this sensitive side of them. And it's completely normal. It's completely fine. Okay? Now, si Jung, he believed the anima and animus, nagmamanifest sila also by appearing in dreams, and they also influence a person's attitudes and interactions with the opposite sex. Okay, now a natural understanding of another member of the opposite sex is instilled, no, in the individuals that stems from constant subjection to members of the opposite sex. Ayan. So, if you have, no, as a man, if you have that understanding of your feminine side, the tendency is you relate with women and you see the qualities of women, and oftentimes mas naiintindihan mo sila. Okay? Because you also see in yourself yung yung side mo, yung feminine side mo na yon. Okay? And it goes the same with women, di ba? If you understand na meron kang animus, di ba? And kung dinidiscover mo yung masculine side mo na yon of a woman, then it might be easier for you to understand how men really are, especially in relationships too. Okay? Now, kala nyo yung 4 lang, no? Archetypal figures, although yung acknowledge that there are 4 main archetypes, meron pa palang ibang archetypal figures that can intermingle with the 4 main archetypes. Okay? So archetypal figures are also known as archetypal images, and these include the following, no? We have the innocent everyman, hero, caregiver, explorer, the rebel, the lover, creator, jester, sage, magician, and the ruler. We will just quickly talk about each one of them. Ayan. So, let us first look at the first four. If you see, they are in color yellow there in our slides. Kasi yung archetypal figures or images na to, meron pa siyang three types. And the first type is the ego types. It includes the innocent, the everyman, the hero, and the caregiver. So, si the innocent, yung parang pinaka-motto niya is free to be me and you. Ang core desire niya is to get to paradise and the goal is to be happy, while its greatest fear is to be punished for doing something bad or wrong. Now, ang strategy ng archetype na ito is to do things the right way. Meron siyang weaknesses. Ang weaknesses naman niya ay boring for all their naive innocence. Okay? So, I will discuss the following archetype figures, no, in terms of what their mottos are, ano yung core desires nila, ano yung goals nila and fears, ano yung strategy ng archetype na ito, ano yung weaknesses nila, and also ano naman yung mga talent nila. So, si Innocent pala yung talent niya is faith and optimism. Okay? Now, si Innocent Man is also known as a utopian, no? Traditionalist siya. Sometimes very naive, also mystic, and romantic naman siya. Dreamer din, si Innocent archetype. Okay? Now, we go to Everyman. Si Everyman, ang motto niya is, all men and women are created equal. Yan. Now, ang core desire niya is connecting with others. Ang goal niya is to belong. Ang greatest fear niya is to be left out or to stand out from the crowd. And ang kanyang strategy naman is to develop ordinary, solid virtues, be down to earth, and ang weakness niya is losing one's own self in an effort to blend in or for the sake of superficial relationships. Yan. Tapos, ang kanyang talent, realism, empathy, lack of pretense. Yan. Also known si Everyman as the good old boy, the regular guy or the regular girl, the person next door, the realist, the working stiff. I'm just reading also, the solid citizen, the good neighbor, and the silent majority. So that is Everyman. Now, bakit ba dinidiscuss ni Carl Jung itong mga archetype figures na ito? Ang dami-dami, no? This one is actually parang brand identity siya ng isang person. You might find yourself more associated to either one of these archetype figures, and it just helps you understand more about yourself. Okay? But like what I said, it's very complex yung ating personality. So maybe you are an innocent archetype, but you are also a sage kind of archetype. So parang ano lang ito, symbolisms to understand the complex concepts of personality, no? And these archetypes, no, these are forms or images of a collective nature na, practically all over the earth ay nagsisimbolize ng mga individuals. No? So we're done with Everyman. Let's now talk about the Hero Archetype. So yung motto ni Hero Archetype, where there's a will, there's a way. Ang core desire niya is to prove one's worth through courageous acts. Ayan, mga hero archetype. Ayan. Now, yung goal niya is expert mastery in a way that improves the world. And greatest fear niya then ay weakness, vulnerability, and being a chicken, no? Pag sinabi natin chicken, yung naduduwag, ganyan. Now, ang strategy ng hero archetype daw is to be as strong and competent as possible. And, yeah. Saan ba tayo? Ayun. And part din pala ng weakness niya is always needing another battle to fight. Ganyan. Kasi nga hero siya. Always, always wanting to fight battles. The hero archetype may also be arrogant in some ways. And kasi nga gusto niya lagi siyang makatulong. So, lagi siya may mga pinaglalaban, ganyan. Now, ang talent niya, sabi ko na ba yung talent niya? Ang talent niya is, of course, competence and courage. No? Kung magiging hero ka, dapat competent and courageous ka. Now, the hero is also known as, ito yung mga other names niya, no? Maybe in other literatures and other articles or readings, you would find the hero labeled as the warrior, crusader, rescuer, superhero, soldier, dragon slayer, the winner, and the team player. Ayan. Number 4, another ego type of archetype figure is the caregiver. Okay? Now, si caregiver, ang motto niya, love your neighbor as yourself. Ang core desire niya is to protect and care for others. Goal din niya ang makatulong sa iba. Ang greatest fear niya ay selfishness and ingratitude. Ang strategy is doing things for others. Yan. Now, ang weakness niya is martyrdom and being exploited. Baka ito yung mga individuals na may tendency na magkaroon ng martyr complex. Okay? So, martyrdom and being exploited because they always want to give care to other people. So, this may be a weakness on their part. The talent of this archetype is compassion and generosity. And they may also be known as the saint, the altruist, the parent, the helper, and the supporter. So there we have the 4 ego types of archetype figures. Okay? Now, yung sunod natin ay yung mga soul types. So we have the ego type, innocent, everyman, hero, caregiver are all ego types. And then we have the soul types. They are the explorer, the lover, the creator, and the rebel. Now, si explorer as the first soul type of archetype figures or image, ito po yung mga very free, no? Gusto nila maging free sila. So, ang motto nila is, don't fence me in. Huwag mo siyang i-cage kasi nga explorer nga siya. So, core desire niya is the freedom to find out who you are through exploring the world. Ang goal ni explorer is to experience a better, more authentic, more fulfilling life. At ang biggest fear naman niya ay getting trapped, ang mag-conform sa society, no, conformity, and also ang fear din niya ay inner emptiness. Parang meron akong ganitong image in my mind of myself, no, si explorer. Ayan. Now, ang strategy ni explorer archetype is journey, seeking out and experiencing new things, and also escaping from the boredom of what we call life. Okay? Minsan kasi may mga bagay sa buhay natin where we feel stuck, diba? So, our image of the explorer may want, no, to experience new things and uses that strategy. Okay, now, yung weakness niya, aimless, wandering, becoming a misfit. So, sobrang free. Ang tendency ay aimlessly wandering in life. Now, yung talent naman niya is autonomy, ambition, being true to one's soul. And the explorer may also be known as the seeker, the iconoclast, wanderer, individualist, and the pilgrim. Ayan. So, itong mga, itong archetype na to, ito yung mga tired of just weaving dreams, and they want to follow yung yung voice nila within. So they want to be free, no? Next one is the rebel. Ang motto naman ni rebel is that rules are made to be broken. Ang core desire niya is to revenge or to start a revolution. Goal niya is to overturn what isn't working. Greatest fear, to be powerless or ineffectual. The strategy is to disrupt, destroy, or shock. Yan. So, medyo may pagka-rebelde nga. So, to disrupt, to destroy, or shock. Yun yung strategy niya. Weakness naman niya is crossing over to the dark side and crime. Siguro kasi there's a very thin line between yung strategy niya of wanting to disrupt because hindi siya nag-agree, and yung weakness is baka mag-cross over siya to the dark side of doing something bad because of wanting that change. Now, ang talent naman ni Rebel is outrageousness. Well, outrageousness is a talent. Radical freedom too, yung mga talents niya. Now, the outlaw, do I have the outlaw here? The outlaw is another term for the rebel. Yeah, I think while I was reading, I also saw the outlaw, yung term. Kaya hinahanap ko si rebel. So, outlaw pala. Siya din pala yun. So, the outlaw is also known as, yun nga, the rebel, revolutionary, wild man, the misfit, or the iconoclast. Yeah. We have the lover. Is that you? The lover? So, the lover motto is that you're the only one. Ang core desire ng lover archetype is that intimacy and experience. Yan. Now, the goal is being in a relationship with the people. Well, it's not just about the people, but also yung kanyang work and the surroundings na mahal niya, no? So, when we say relationship, it's not only romantic relationship, but with the rest of the people and the work surrounding the person and the things that they love. Now, ang greatest fear naman ay being alone, a wallflower, maging unwanted and unloved. The strategy of the lover is to become more and more physically and emotionally attractive. Oh, wow. That's interesting. And ang weakness naman niya is this archetype might have an outward directed desire to please other people at the risk of losing their own identity. If you look at all of this now, and if you are hearing what I'm saying here, actually you might see yourself as having all sorts of characteristics coming from each one of the archetypes, no? 'Di ba? Now, talent ni lover, or ako lang yun. Feeling ko ako lahat ng mga archetypes nito. So, yung talent niya is passion, gratitude, appreciation, and commitment. And ang iba pang tawag kay lover ay partner, friend, intimate person, enthusiast, sensualist, spouse, or the team builder. Now, the next one that we have is the creator, also known as the artist. Ang motto niya is, if you can imagine it, it can be done. Interesting, no? Now, core desire niya is to create things of enduring value. Ang goal niya is to realize a vision. Ang greatest fear niya is mediocre vision or mediocre executions of these visions. Now, ang strategy ni artist or creator is to develop artistic control and skill. Yung mga task niya siguro, no, yung to create culture, express own vision, while yung kanyang weaknesses, perfectionism, and because too much perfection, nagkakaroon ng bad solution. So these are weaknesses of the creator archetype. Now, the talent is creativity and imagination. Ang iba pang tawag sa kanya ay artist, inventor, innovator, musician, writer, or a dreamer. Ayan. So, all of those archetypes are the soul types. Okay? And then finally, we move on to the self type. So we have the ego, the self types, etong pangatlo, and kanina we have the soul types. Etong mga white, sila yung the self types. No, the first one that we have here is the Jester. So the Jester, ang motto niya, you only live once. And the core desire is to live in the moment with full enjoyment. The goal is to have a great time and lighten up the world. Well, that's a nice goal, no? The greatest fear, being bored or boring other people. Ang strategy ni Jester is to play, to make jokes, and to be funny, be humorous. Ang weakness naman niya is wasting time and frivolity, no? Kasi nga parang puro all jokes siya. Kasi yun yung strategy na meron siya na wants to be funny. Well, the talent is joy. Okay? Now, the Jester is also known as the fool, the trickster, the practical joker, the prankster, or the comedian or the joker. No? And we have the sage. The sage motto, the truth will set you free. Now, yung core desire niya is to always find the truth. Yung goal niya, to use intelligence and analysis to understand the world around them. Biggest fear, being duped, misled, or yung ignorance. Of course, that's the biggest fear of a sage. Kasi pag sinabi nating sage, wise person. Okay, so biggest fear nito ay ignorance. Now, strategy, seeking out information and knowledge, self-reflection and understanding thought processes. Weakness, can study details forever and ever and ever, but never act. May mga ganon. No? So, kakaaral, hindi na na-apply. So, dapat na-apply din natin. So, yung talent niya is wisdom and intelligence. The sage is also known as the expert, the scholar, detective, advisor, thinker, philosopher, academic researcher, thinker, planner, professional, a lot of things, no, mentor, teacher, and the contemplative. So, all those are the other names of the sage. Now, 11, we have magician, kasi we have the 12 archetype figures here. Now, the magician's motto is, I make things happen. Core desire, understanding the fundamental laws of the universe. The goal is to make dreams come true. Greatest fear is unintended negative consequences. Ayan. Magic kasi. So, may mga unintended negative consequences paminsan-minsan. Strategy, develop a vision and live by it. Okay? Ang weakness niya, becoming manipulative. Now, yung talent niya is finding win-win solutions. The magician is also known as the visionary, the catalyst, also inventor, charismatic leader, a shaman, a healer, and a medicine man. And finally, we have the ruler. Ang motto niya ay, power isn't everything, it's the only thing. Okay, now, ang core desire is control. The goal is to create a prosperous, successful family or community strategy. Community, ang strategy niya is to exercise power. Ang greatest fear niya is chaos, being overthrown. Ang weakness niya is sometimes being an authoritarian and hindi siya able to delegate. Unable to delegate siya. May mga ganyang characteristics ang ibang rulers. So, difficult for them to delegate tasks. But the talent of this archetype is, of course, responsibility, leadership. Ang mga ibang tawag sa kanya is the boss, the leader, aristocrat, king, queen, politician, role model, manager, or administrator. Okay, so those are the archetypes under the collective unconscious. I'm going to have a task relating to these concepts of Carl Jung for my students. So, pakiabangan na lang din po yan sa ating Google Classroom. But this is just the first part medyo madaming pa tayong i-discuss about Carl Jung. Pero ito muna, um, almost 2 hours, no? But I hope that you found something interesting about Carl Jung, and also, listening to what we have discussed here. I hope that you have also learned something about yourselves. Yun naman yung goal natin, kaya din tayo nag-aaral, is also to know more about our own personalities, ano ba nag-influence sa ating behavior and all that. So thank you very much for your time for today. I'll see you on my next video. Thank you.